Welcome to the deep dive. We've got something pretty provocative today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, received this source material and essay, and it's uncomfortable. It really goes after some fundamental assumptions about faith and reason.
It really does.
And, who's actually closer to God, if you will. The author pushes this idea. They call it the grand deception.
Yeah, and it's less about theology, like specific doctrines, and more a critique of spiritual authenticity, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It flips the whole script.
It really aims to turn that spiritual hierarchy completely upside down.
So our mission today, as we see it, is to grapple with this really radical claim the source makes.
Which is?
That an honest atheist, get this,
Okay.
stands immeasurably closer to the true God than the person we usually think of as the pious believer.
It's a bombshell of a claim. So we need to unpack that. We need to look at what the source calls the believer's lie, the anatomy of it. And then on the flip side, this idea of the atheist's unintentional holiness, it sounds paradoxical.
It does. And through all that, we need to pull out the core ideas the source is working with. Truth, with a capital T, and idolatry.
And the tone, as you said, it's direct. It's not trying to gently persuade.
No, not at all. It calls the conventional religious view, or at least the ritualistic side of it, a cozy, infantile worldview. Strong words.
Very strong. And it says, look, if you want actual salvation, real spiritual growth, the path isn't comfort. It's paved with the ruthless destruction of idols, your own idols.
It's basically saying you have to tear things down before you can build anything real.
Yeah.
It's designed to make you question everything you thought was solid.
Right. If you're someone focused on the rituals, the external stuff, the source argues you're essentially polishing chains. You're busy decorating idols, not even starting the real journey.
You're stuck.
Stuck. If your connection to the divine is just about, lighting the candles, saying the right words.
Going through the motions.
Exactly. Then the source claims you might be the furthest away from understanding what it's actually about.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. For you listening, we're going to perform what the source basically demands. A kind of necessary autopsy.
A spiritual autopsy.
Yeah, on a modern believer. Starting with that really uncomfortable question. What if the image we have of piety, of religious devotion, is actually just a really good mask?
A mask for what, though? That's what we need to get into.
Right. So section 1, the anatomy of a lie. And the core assertion, the really aggressive charge here, is that the average modern believer, they aren't actually worshiping God or anything transcendent.
So what are they worshiping?
Themselves, essentially, their own ego, their own needs, projected onto something they call God,
Yeah.
like a divine proxy.
And the source has a name for this.
Spiritual narcissism, plain and simple.
Wow. Okay. And it doesn't just leave it there, right? It gets specific about this idol. It talks about an idol factory, worshiping a projection.
Exactly. It asks what kind of God are most people really worshiping? And the source paints this picture, almost a caricature,
Like what?
like a super king, or a big cosmic judge keeping score, or, the classic bearded man on a cloud, an anthropomorphic figure.
Okay, so familiar images. But the source sees these as problematic.
Deeply problematic. It argues these aren't insights into the divine, they're just projections of human psychology, born out of our needs.
What kinds of needs?
Well, the need for a father figure, maybe,
Yeah.
someone to impose order, or a way to handle our fear of chaos, of death.
Or something more cynical.
Yeah, the source gets pretty cynical. It mentions the idea of a cosmic vending machine that dispenses blessings. You put in a prayer, you get results.
So the key is that this entity is manageable.
Precisely. It's understandable, it's controllable, predictable, and crucially, it reflects the worshiper's own values and biases back at them. It validates them.
Ah, okay, so it's comfortable. But hang on, loads of people find genuine comfort, real moral structure in these simple images. Is the source just dismissing that, saying it's worthless?
It doesn't quite say it's worthless, but it says the comfort is the trap. That's the danger. Because it's convenient. It keeps you from seeking something deeper, something maybe less comfortable.
Less manageable.
Exactly. It stops the search. The source is uncompromising here. It calls this setup idolatry in its purest, most undiluted form. Because you're worshiping something made, something manufactured by the ego, not the actual unknowable source of reality.
The creator, not the creation.
Right. And this definition of the God being worshipped, this projection, it leads straight into the next point about transactional faith.
Okay.
This is where, for me, it gets really interesting. The source basically says, look, what most people call faith, It's not faith at all. It's a business deal.
A commercial contract.
Yeah, like primitive bargaining. Paganism, almost.
So it's like a spiritual marketplace. Give me some examples the source uses.
Oh, it's very direct. Things like, okay, God, I'll light this candle for this specific saint, the one for exams, and you have to help me pass my finals. Or, I'm going to fast for 40 days, really suffer. And in return, you need to cure my aunt, or give me that promotion or whatever. It's pure quid pro quo.
You do this for me, I'll do this for you.
Exactly. It's an attempt to bribe reality, isn't it?
Well, that's where the source's definition of the true God comes in, and it's crucial. It argues the true God isn't a person you can bargain with. It's the very principle of reality itself.
Logos.
Truth.
The fundamental laws of existence.
Right. And once you define God that way impersonally as the underlying structure of everything, the idea of bribing it just becomes, well, absurd.
Yeah, you can't negotiate with gravity. You can't make a deal with Ipsiak.
Exactly. You align with it or you don't. You understand it. Or you suffer the consequences of ignoring it. So trying to bargain with reality itself, pointless.
So all those prayers and rituals, from this perspective, they're just superstitious payments.
Yeah.
Driven by really basic stuff.
That's the argument. Driven by fear of failing the exam, fear of sickness, death, punishment, and greed, too, for wealth, health, success.
So the relationship isn't really a relationship. It's just a list of demands.
Yeah, a list of demands sent up to an imaginary CEO, as the source puts it, someone you think you can manipulate through ritual or payment.
And because it's all based on getting rewards or avoiding punishment.
It lacks any genuine, selfless reverence. It's fundamentally self-centered. The source argues the structure guarantees the believer stays stuck, spiritually immature, like a kid demanding presents from Santa. They never grow beyond that transactional stage.
Which is a perfect lead-in to Section 2.
Yeah.
Because that transactional mindset, that need for comfort, it shapes the character, right? The source argues it leads to this state marked by spiritual pride and deep superstition. Ultimately, an infantile mind.
Right. The critique moves from the object of worship to the behavior and the internal state of the worshiper.
And it tackles this idea of pride first. We usually associate piety, religious observance, with humility. But the source says, nope, look closer.
What does it see instead?
Gordinia. It uses this specific term, spiritual pride. But it's disguised, cleverly, as piety.
How does that manifest? What does this pride look like?
It's pride in the externals, the visible stuff, being proud of your perfect church attendance record, or knowing all the obscure bits of scripture, or, crucially, being really good at performing the rituals correctly, especially the complicated ones, making sure everyone sees you doing it right.
Ah, so it becomes a kind of performance, a competition in outward righteousness.
Exactly. And the moment it becomes about that external performance, well, you immediately create rankings, don't you?
You start comparing.
Yeah, and looking down on the sinners, the ones who don't follow the rules, the unbelievers, and definitely the atheists from this position of imagined moral superiority.
I checked all the boxes, so I'm okay. You didn't, so you're not. That kind of thinking.
That's exactly it. I'm saved because I do X, Y, and Z. You're condemned because you don't.
Okay, so if that's false humility masking pride, where does the source say true humility lies, if not in bowing and praying visibly?
This is maybe one of the most challenging parts. True humility, according to this source, isn't found in any outward action. It's found in an internal admission.
Which is?
The terrifying, gut-wrenching admission, I don't know.
Facing the uncertainty?
Yes. The willingness to stand before the vastness, the mystery, the maybe indifference of the universe, without demanding a simple, comforting answer or guarantee. That's the real sign of respect for the divine, for reality. Embracing the not knowing.
And the transactional believer, they can't do that.
The source says they're constitutionally incapable of it. They need the certainty. They need the safety net the rituals provide. They need the guarantee that their spiritual payments will yield the promised results.
So they trade the hard work of internal change.
For the easier, manageable certainty of external ritual.
Yeah, okay. And to make this more concrete, the source uses a really potent, and you mentioned controversial image.
Yes. The archetype used to critique superstition. It's the image of the sweet old babushka in a headscarf, diligently crossing herself.
Right, and culturally that image evokes, simple, pure, unshakable faith, something to be admired.
We're conditioned to see it that way. But the source deliberately targets that sentimentality, calls it a grotesque lie.
A lie.
Argues it's an image not of faith, but of pure, simple superstition. The author insists this figure, this babushka, isn't worshiping logos or truth or the impersonal divine principle.
What is she worshiping then?
The physical object, the painted wood of the icon, or the ritual act itself, the crossing motion, believing the mechanics hold the power.
So like magic almost, a localized deity pleased by specific actions.
Pretty much. Disconnected from any deeper philosophical reality, just do this, get that.
And the implication for her mind, her spiritual state.
Profound, according to the source. It argues her mind is kept in a state of spiritual infancy. She's been given rules, images, actions to memorize, but she hasn't been challenged to engage with the actual vastness or the intellectual rigor required to grapple with the nature of God or reality.
Yeah. She remains a spiritual child, needing simple stories and clear instructions, comforted by the familiar actions.
Yes. But then the source asks a really critical question. Why? Why would religious institutions potentially allow or even encourage this state?
And the answer is?
This is the really damning structural critique. The source claims that often the institution is designed that way, to keep minds in a controllable, predictable, infantile state.
Why? What's the benefit to the institution?
Control, predictability, manageability. Infantile minds are easier to lead, less likely to question, and cynically easier to get donations from if reassurance is tied to payment.
So the framework itself isn't a path to liberation or salvation.
It's a cage of comfortable illusions, in the source's words, designed to keep people inside, safe, but never truly growing or free. And anyone who starts asking real questions, seeking truth, they threaten the cage, they become disruptive. Okay, so we've done the autopsy. It's pretty brutal on the conventional believer.
It is unflinching.
But now we have to pivot, because the source turns everything on its head and looks at the figure usually condemned by that believer, the atheist.
The reviled atheist.
Right. And the argument is that the atheist's rejection of the comfortable lies, that's actually the first truly authentic act of worship. This is the unwitting saint part.
So we need to stop seeing their skepticism just as defiance or rebellion.
Exactly. The source frames it as an act of profound integrity. It calls it the courage of honesty.
How so?
Well, the atheist looks at the conventional picture of God, the super king, the bearded man, and they apply reason. They apply critical thinking, which the source, interestingly, calls the divine spark within him.
Reason itself is divine.
In this framework, yes. Because it seeks truth, it aligns with reality. So the atheist uses this divine spark, looks at the common image of God and says, no, that doesn't make sense. That sounds like a childish fairy tale, and rejects it.
But how is that rejection an act of worship or even humility? Isn't it often seen as arrogance? I know better.
That's the common view. But the source argues the opposite. It says the spiritual weight of this rejection is immense, because it's often not based on arrogant certainty like, I know for a fact there's no God.
So what is it based on?
Intellectual and spiritual honesty. A refusal to lie to oneself just to feel comfortable or to fit in or to avoid the fear of death. The atheist chooses the harsh, empty-handed truth over a comforting, ready-made lie.
They choose reality even if it's bleak.
Exactly. And think about the sacrifice involved in that choice.
What do they lose?
Comfort, for one. The safety net of belief. Maybe community belonging. The easy assurance of meaning or purpose. The promise of eternal life. They have to face mortality, existential dread, uncertainty, potentially alone.
That act of facing the void, choosing reality over a consoling fantasy, that requires courage.
That's the argument. That is a demonstration of authentic courage. And that sacrifice, that clearing away of comforting falsehoods, creates what the source calls the fertile ground.
Fertile for what?
For genuine understanding. The declaration, I don't know, or even more strongly, I refuse to believe something that seems absurd, that becomes the starting point, the clean slate.
Whereas the believer, who thinks they do know,
they've stopped searching. They think they've arrived. The source says they've salted their own soil with cheap certainties. Growth becomes impossible because they're protecting their existing answers. The atheist, by admitting ignorance, has to keep searching. It's often painful, relentless, but it's a search.
Okay, that makes sense. Which leads us to the absolute core of the source's argument, doesn't it? The redefinition of God, the unseen worship.
Yes, this is where it all comes together. The true God, the source insists, is not a person. Not a being you can have a relationship with in the human sense.
So what is it?
It's the ultimate impersonal principle of reality. It is truth itself. It's logic logos. It's the fundamental, objective, underlying law and structure of the universe.
Wow. Okay, so God is reality. God is truth. That changes everything.
It does. It forces you to completely abandon the idea of a subjective emotional deity who intervenes based on prayer or desire. Logos is impersonal. It's indifferent in that sense. You just did.
Can't bargain with is.
Right. Which brings us back to that analogy the source uses, the one about gravity.
Yeah, explain that again.
You don't believe in gravity in the morning. You don't perform rituals hoping gravity will keep you on the floor today.
If you just align with it, you operate according to its laws.
Exactly. You align your actions with it, or you suffer the consequences. Jump off a roof, gravity doesn't care about your beliefs, you fall. Build a bridge, ignoring physics, it collapses.
Okay.
Similarly, the source argues you don't believe in truth. You either serve it, align yourself with it, seek it relentlessly, or you live in delusion. And delusion, for this author, is spiritual death.
So, serving truth is serving God, regardless of what name you put on it.
That's the radical claim. Service to reality is service to the divine, which completely flips who we consider pious.
So who are the truly pious, then, in this model?
Well, not the believer mumbling prayers they don't fully grasp, according to this. Instead, maybe it's the scientist.
The scientist, how?
The scientist dedicating her life to uncovering objective laws, honoring the structure of reality through rigorous testing, observation, honesty about results, even when they're inconvenient.
Okay, I see the connection. Who else?
The mathematician seeking that elegant, unyielding purity of a perfect proof, a proof that reflects the logical structure of reality. The philosopher demanding consistency and coherence, the historian painstakingly sifting through propaganda and lies to find verifiable facts.
So any act of genuine, honest inquiry, any commitment to objective reality over wishful thinking or bias.
It is redefined as an act of worship, an act of aligning with logos. So the atheist committed to reason and evidence, even if they explicitly deny God.
Is actually serving the underlying principle of reality more faithfully than the ritualist.
That's the core of it. They
Right.
serve the thing itself, the structure of the universe, truth, not a comfortable, distorted, human-made caricature of it. They are, in this sense, the unwitting saints.
Okay, that's a powerful reframing. Which brings us to the final section. Section 4. How does the source frame the core struggle, then, if it's not believer versus atheist?
It frames it around this process of de-idolization. If the goal is spiritual integrity, spiritual growth, the first and most crucial step is what it calls the destruction of the primary idol.
And salvation isn't just one moment, like conversion.
No, not at all. It's a lifelong process.
Huh.
Hard, painful work of identifying and smashing all the false gods we cling to.
Like what kind of idols, besides the transactional God?
Oh, our own ego, definitely. Our fears, our cherished political ideologies that we refuse to question, our desires for status or wealth, anything we elevate above truth, above reality.
Okay, so where does the conventional believer fit into this process? What's their trap?
The believer's trap, as the source sees it, is that they're stuck at level 0. They can't even begin the real de-idolization process.
Why not?
Because they are forbidden culturally, institutionally, maybe even psychologically, from questioning their primary idol, that personified transactional God who provides the comfort and the answers.
So their spiritual life isn't about destroying idols.
It's about protecting the main one. It's about decorating and polishing this core idol, reinforcing the certainty it gives them. They're defending the comfort mechanism, which prevents them from doing the hard, necessary work of self-confrontation and radical honesty.
They can't tear down the house because they're too busy rearranging the furniture.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But the atheist, the source argues they have an advantage here. The atheist's advantage.
Which is?
They've already done the hardest part, maybe without even realizing its spiritual significance. They've taken the sledgehammer to the great central idol, the anthropomorphic, wish-granting deity.
It cleared the ground.
Exactly. Their house might be empty. The source admits it could feel cold, frightening, and void of comfortable guarantees. But critically, it's clean.
Clean of the biggest illusion.
Yes. The fundamental barrier to seeking actual truth, unfiltered reality, has been removed. So the atheist is free, unburdened by that core mythology they feel obligated to protect. They can begin the real work of seeking logos from a place of, well, honesty.
While the believer first has to commit what feels like treason against their own comfort, their own community's beliefs.
A much harder starting point,
Right.
psychologically. So the source concludes, The real battle isn't believer versus atheist. That's a distraction, a false dichotomy, maybe perpetuated by institutions.
So what is the real struggle?
It's the idolater versus the seeker of truth. That's the only division that matters spiritually.
Okay, can you summarize the source's view of each? The idolater.
Unsparingly negative. Someone worshiping a comfortable fiction, a projection of their own ego, engaged in a transactional, basically selfish relationship with a cosmic Santa Claus, spiritually stagnant, maybe even spiritually dead, using piety as a shield against uncomfortable self-examination.
And the atheist. Or rather, the seeker of truth, who might be an atheist.
Almost heroic in this telling, a seeker. Someone whose commitment to reason is itself a form of worship, whose intellectual honesty is a form of prayer. Someone who is already walking the path of salvation simply because they are relentlessly oriented towards what is true, even when it's difficult or isolating.
Wow. Okay. And it leaves us with a final question, doesn't it? For the listener.
Yeah, a really provocative one. It asks you to consider. In the final accounting, when everything is stripped away, who will be judged as having lived a life of greater spiritual integrity?
Who is closer to the true God?
Right. Is it the one who spent their life flattering and trying to bribe an idol, the comfortable fiction, basically for personal gain? Or is it the one who, out of brutal honesty, maybe even pain, refused to bow to anything but the truth itself?
Phew. That's a lot to take in. It really shakes things up.
It absolutely does. So, synthesizing this, what does it all mean? The source is fundamentally redefining faith, isn't it? It's not about belief systems or rituals.
Not primarily. It's about a state. A state of relentless, often uncomfortable honesty, completely divorced from institutional structures or dogma.
It equates genuine spirituality with,
Oh.
with intellectual and existential rigor, with courage.
And it shifts the whole center of gravity. If you accept the premise, and it's a big if for many, that the true God is this impersonal principle of reality, logos, truth.
Then what follows?
Then anytime you commit to reality, you're performing a spiritual act. Anytime you choose objective fact over comfortable narrative, you're honoring the divine.
So this raises a question directly for you, the listener, doesn't it? If we run with this premise just for a moment, then maybe every honest commitment you make in your work, in your studies, in your life, it has a potentially profound spiritual dimension.
Give me examples.
Like the engineer you mentioned, who insists on precise calculations because the bridge must be safe, that's serving reality. The business analyst demanding accurate data, not just rosy projections that's serving truth. The teacher insisting on verifiable history, not feel-good myths.
According to the source, these people, knowingly or not, are the real priests. Priests as logos.
It forces you to look at your own life, not through the lens of religious compliance, but through the lens of basic honesty. Intellectual honesty. Where are you protecting comfortable fictions? Where are you maybe polishing an idol?
Just because facing the truth feels too cold, too hard.
Yeah. And the source's final jab. It suggests the atheist is often just repulsed by the circus of organized religion, the emotionalism, the intellectual shortcuts, the packaged certainty, and it asks, well, can you blame them? So if the real spiritual life is this difficult ongoing process of de-idolization, the final challenge it leaves hanging is for you. What are your idols? Not just the obvious religious ones. What are the subtle, cherished, unquestioned assumptions or beliefs you're still decorating in your own mind?
Is it the idol of political certainty, left or right? Is it the idol of your own infallible intellect, your self-image?
Is it the idol of needing certainty itself? That's the uncomfortable question, isn't it? Which side of that line are you really on? The idolater clinging to comfort, or the seeker committed above all else to truth?
A challenging thought to end on.